Welcome back. We're going to look at some techniques now that are going to give you access to more melody notes and some different rhythms. Let's take a moment to review the bum diddy pattern. It has 4 parts: note, rest, note, thumb, or note, rest, brush, thumb. In either case, there's a rest in the pattern. That's one of the things that gives clawhammer banjo its distinctive sound. But there are plenty of times where you want to fill in that rest. We're going to discuss a few ways to do that. There are 3 techniques that you can use: hammer on, pull off, and a slide. First, the hammer on. So when you're hammering on, you're starting by striking an open string, and we're going to start with the first string. Bring your finger down onto the fretboard in whatever fret position you want your note to be. In this case, we're going to use the 2nd fret. And then to finish the full bum diddy pattern, we'll do a brush thumb after that. 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to move your finger quickly, but you don't necessarily need to use a lot of force on the fretboard itself. What happens is that you pinch off the string, and the remaining vibrations in the string are now vibrating at the new pitch. The sound doesn't come from banging your finger on the fretboard, although, as you heard, you can get a little bit of a sound by doing it that way. If you move your finger too slow, you run the risk of muting the string before you pinch it off behind the fret. So there I just muted the string. But if you go at a reasonable speed, you'll get your 2nd pitch. Practice that so that you can get all 4 parts of your pattern nice and even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. A pull off is just the opposite. You're going to start with your finger down on a fret, you're going to strike the note, and then pull your finger away before finishing your pattern. Now in this case, you do want to actually put a little bit of extra force into the string. If I just take my finger off without doing a plucking motion, I won't get much sound. So in this case, you actually want to give a little bit of force. When I'm on the first string here, I am pulling downward with my finger. But when I go to any of the other strings, I actually tend to push upward. So here I am on the 3rd string at the 2nd fret. Now what happens is if I try to actually pull down, I run the risk of dragging my finger along the other strings and accidentally making notes that I didn't intend. So if I push upward, I avoid that problem. Next, let's take a look at a slide. In a slide, you start with your finger down on a fret position, strike the string, and push your finger up until you get to the position you want. I find that it's really hard to train my hand to just slide up the neck as a full unit. It's not that easy to tell how far up I've gone up the neck if I'm not looking. So one of the things that I like to do is I actually extend my hand. I try to keep my thumb roughly at that 1st fret position and slide your finger by extending your fingers outward. This has 2 benefits. One is it helps train your muscle memory. My muscles can remember what it's like to stretch really far or stretch really short. Stretch to go from the 2nd to the 5th fret, or just 1 fret from the 2nd to the 3rd fret. And it's easier for my hand to remember that feeling than it is to remember where I am on the neck by sliding my whole hand. The other thing about doing the extension is that when you're done, your thumb is basically back in its original position, and you can pop your hand right back to where it needs to be to get to the other notes. There's a practice pattern that I like to teach my students, and it goes like this. What I'm doing is I'm starting on an open string, and so I start on the 4th string. I'm going to do a hammer-on, and in this case, our hammer-on position is the 2nd fret. So hammer-on followed by the brush thumb. With my fingers still down, I'm going to do my next step, which is the pull-off. Then I'm going to do a slide, and here on the 4th string, we're going to go from the 2nd fret to the 5th fret. And then just to round out the pattern, I'm going to do one more regular bum ditty with my finger there in its final position. We're going to do the same thing on the 3rd string. We're going to be at the 2nd fret, and when we slide, we're going to go to the 4th fret. Now on the 2nd string, our position will be on the 1st fret, and our slide will be to the 3rd fret. And lastly, on our 1st string, our fret position will be on the 2nd fret, and our slide will go to the 5th fret. I recommend you try this pattern with both your middle finger and your 1st finger. That way, depending on what chord you're in or where you're coming from, either finger will feel comfortable doing those techniques. Here it is one more time for practice. There are going to be plenty of times where you're going to want to change notes within the bum ditty pattern without using a hammer-on or a pull-off. So don't forget that that's a possibility too. A pull-off would sound like this. And simply removing your finger lightly without plucking will sound like this. There are some right hand techniques that you can use to also fill in that rest space of the bum ditty pattern. Remember, our bum ditty pattern looks like this on the right hand. One of the simplest things you can do is something called a double thumb. Instead of taking a rest, you fill in that first rest with your thumb. So you're basically just doing an alternating pattern of a downstroke and a thumb. I think it's important to still think of that as a 4-part pattern so that when you're doing a double thumb, you're still able to fit it into your playing like a normal bum ditty pattern. So here's just alternating between the bum ditty and the double thumb. Bum ditty double thumb, bum ditty double thumb. Now let's take a look at the drop thumb. In the drop thumb, you're going to fill in the empty space with a thumb note on a string that's not the 5th string. Most of the time, I play on the 2nd string, and I think most players probably play the 2nd string as their default drop thumb string. But it is possible to play the other strings depending on what melody note you want. So a drop thumb sounds like this. And the way that I like to think of it is that as I'm going to strike my first note, this is where my thumb usually will just rest on the string, but instead my thumb is going to travel with my finger. And so my whole hand, thumb and finger, are going to come down, and my finger is going to strike the string at about the same time as my thumb catches on that 2nd string. And so then my first finger pushes through the string, and then at the right time my thumb finishes by plucking that 2nd string. Now, one of the things that you might want to think of to help you is how your fingers are aligned when you're hitting the fourth string and the thumb in your normal playing. You've got a really close alignment between those two fingers in order to hit the fourth string. And you're going to want that same alignment in order to hit the first string and the second string with your thumb. Now, after you've done that first part, the drop thumb part, you finish with the regular note thumb or brush thumb, just like always. And again, you can practice an alternating pattern. Bum, diddy, drop, thumb. Sometimes you may not want to use your thumb at all. An example might be where you just want a little bit of space between two melody notes before you fill in the rest with your bum diddy. It could sound like this. In this case, you'll see that my thumb is resting on the fifth string both times, but I'm choosing not to pluck through the string. I'm choosing not to pluck the fifth string until I go to the second part where I decide to do the complete bum ditty. This is really useful in one of the ways that I like to end parts of old-time songs. It's something that I just call the drop thumb end lick. So in this case, I'm beginning a drop thumb, and then instead of a brush thumb to finish, I just do a single note. Here I've got my finger fretted on the second fret of the third string. And so if we think about it, this is a bum ditty. Bum ditty, bum ditty. There's just no E on the bum ditty. When we add the last bum ditty of the open third string. These are the basic techniques that you're going to use to build your tunes and build your own playing style. So practice them, try them in different combinations, and have fun.